It's down.
Well, yeah, I don't think he ran last
He did.
He walked.
So there's some animosity.
Thank you. The time is now 7 o'clock p.m. and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were
Aaron Smith. Suzanne LeClaire.
Kip Wiley.
John Schaefer.
Noel Sawyer.
Phil Mello.
Ken Matthews
Bob Carlson.
Carol Harvey.
and Neil Levy. If any person who participates...
Mayor, we have one other.
I'm sorry.
Kristen Sazowski.
Thanks, Kristen. I'm sorry. If any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concerns now. Thank you. Hearing none, the next item on today's agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you all join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We're going to be on 4A on your agenda, an appointment to the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, we didn't get any applications this time for Planning Commission, so I guess I'm here to have everybody think about it, enlist their friends. It's a great position, and it's one that's very important in our community. So please, everybody that's here or watching, consider that application process. Move on to 4B. We have a proclamation declaring August 18th, 2015 as Arbor Day. This is a City of Woodland Park proclamation, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the National Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable source, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Neil Levy, Mayor of the City of Woodland Park, do hereby proclaim August 18th, 2015 as Arbor Day in the City of Woodland Park. And I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts for care of our trees and woodlands and to support our city's community forestry program. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And dated this 6th day of August 2015, and I'm signing right now. Great, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to 4C and Mr. Buttery.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor, after we do item 4D, I do have item 4E that's not on the agenda. If I'd like a little bit of time after we do 4D. Council knows that Mayor Pro Tem Harvey has been serving on the CML's policy committee for some time and representing the city very, very well. Those of you that attend CML see the result of that work when we have the annual meeting, and the fruits of her labors are shared with the rest of the CML board and the CML community. Mayor Pro Tem Harvey has agreed to continue service in that capacity. As it is an appointment by the council, I'm asking you to ratify her desire to continue serving the community on the policy committee for CML. So I would be looking for a motion of support.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Mella?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, and thanks for your service.
And David, there is a district CML meeting in Manitou Springs, and I do not have the date of that.
21st.
21st of August.
September.
Oh, September.
And the invitations, I think, were sent out. I received mine today. We'll make sure council has those. It's the 4 to 8 p.m. There's an update by CML. There's a dinner with folks from our particular area. And again, it's down in Manitou Springs at Adams Mountain Cafe. We'll make sure you get those.
Those are worthwhile attending. CML always does a good presentation, and it's Manitou Springs, so it should be interesting.
Should be interesting. Thank you, and thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, we'll move on, David.
Yes, sir. If you would go ahead and take care of 4D, we'll have some representatives from the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department come up. Sally, would you like to do that introduction?
Sure.
I'm very pleased to introduce to you the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department Plan Review Director, and that is Jay Eamhouse, and he has a presentation to all of you on behalf of our building department.
Thank you, Sally. We've had another very productive year at Regional Building, and with that productivity, part of that comes from all the projects that you guys have had up here in Woodland Park. So with that, we do like to give back to the communities, to those jurisdictions that we serve, and we would like to present the City of Woodland Park and Sally a check for $5,000 for your Main Street project.
Right.
So,
It truly has been a pleasure working with Pikes Peak Regional. They're an extremely professional organization. They are extremely helpful. And I have to say, Jay's group, if I send him an email, he responds to us right away, even as minor as it may be or in-depth as it may be. He's really a terrific guy, and I'd like to also acknowledge John Welton in the blue shirt. John is in charge of our inspectors, and our building inspector, Dan Friedel. Dan does a super job for us, and John's a great supervisor for that organization. And Darlene?
And I just want to, Darlene Jensen, Main Street Coordinator. I just want to personally thank Jay and to the Pikes Peak Regional Building Department for the support to Main Street. This will go a long way in the 2015 year with the work we're doing with retail, especially with the partnership we created with DDA and Main Street. We have a retreat forthcoming, and we're really focusing on enhancement of our businesses in downtown. So truly appreciating this. Thank you so much.
Jay, thank you very much. I'm sure Sally's going to be easier to get along with now, too, that she's got that $5,000. Thank you very much. Okay, David, we'll move on to 4E.
Thank you, sir. Council will recall, and the community will recall, that back in May, we said farewell to Chief Bob Larson after 35-plus years of service to the community of Woodland Park in the police department. We were able to keep the chief on. Tomorrow's his last day. This is his last council meeting. Chris, thank you for your years of support. And we just want to acknowledge the wonderful service that Bob has provided to the council, to the staff, and to the community. And if he's got some words, I'm sure there'll be few. We would enjoy that opportunity to hear them. And then I do have one follow-on statement after you, sir.
enjoyed working here. Obviously, I wouldn't have stayed this long if I didn't. But it's been a very good place to work. The city looks good. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you, and continued success, and have a wonderful retirement. I know you're moving back to Michigan to be a bit closer to friends, and I think there's fishing involved in there somewhere as well. Council, I'd also like to announce that I'm appointing Deputy Chief Miles Young as the acting Chief of Police. I will be bringing to you a final recommendation for that position in the near future. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Bob. Obviously, we're going to miss you and Chris and everything you've done for our community. And tomorrow's looking forward to working with you. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to number 5. We have no additions or deletions. So consent calendar, Suzanne, looks like only one thing tonight.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Levy. This evening on tonight's consent calendar, we have the minutes of the July 16th regular meeting. Sir.
Yes, one recommended correction on page 5 under D, as in David, the 4th paragraph, it reads, Council Member Mella stated that he would like to come before the council and not the city manager. And it should read, Council Member Mella stated that he would like it to come before council and not the city manager.
Thank you. Correction noted.
Thank you.
Anything else, council? Okay. Suzanne?
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Mella?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business tonight, so we'll move on to ordinances on initial posting, which we have a number of. And Sally, if there you are, to consider ordinance number 1243.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. And this is a legislative item to amend our zoning regulations, so I would like to take the opportunity to explain what Ordinance 1243 is about, in order that if you do have any concerns about this amendment or change to our zoning regulations, we can talk about that this evening before we set the public hearing for the August 20th meeting. So, being legislative, we are asking to delete the minimum 1 acre lot size and the 100-foot setback to any single-family residence for the development and operation of nursing homes, convalescent homes, assisted living, or any facility that would deal with a home for the aged. And also add in the allowance for these types of facilities to be in the multifamily zones. This will give it more opportunities for this type of use in our community, and certainly as us baby boomers continue to age, there is greater demand for this type of facility. So our motivation for the ordinance has been that we have had a couple of developers approach us, and in looking at the matrix, we felt that this was a fairly antiquated approach. They've expressed concerns about the minimum lot size, the setback requirements, and not being allowed in the multifamily zones. So our municipal code mandates this setback right now to any residential area, and it is quite common that there are single-family zones up against either commercial or multifamily tracts of land. The limit of 1 acre reduces the number of tracts. If someone were to propose a very small facility, they may not need a whole acre to be able to construct. And then it just seems that multifamily zones lend themselves to this type of use. They're fairly similar to apartment complexes, which are a permitted use in the multifamily zone. These would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and we have propose that they are all conditional uses. So with a conditional use, you're very familiar with the 11 criteria that are reviewed. So there's plenty of opportunity to mitigate impacts through the conditional use process rather than mandate that 100-foot separation or the 1 acre. Mentioned that they're similar to apartment complexes, and they may actually have fewer impacts. They may be less noisy, less traffic for a senior facility. We've researched regulations from other communities, found no comparable standards in other municipalities, and I mentioned the need for additional senior facilities with our changing demographics, and it is consistent with a comprehensive plan for a large range of housing opportunities or options. And there is a movement that most people would really prefer to age in place rather than having to downsize or move into a facility that isn't in their community. We do have, fortunately, a skilled nursing facility being built by the hospital, but there is still somewhat of a demand and a market for these types of developments. So the real meat of the ordinance is the matrix, this section 1809090J3, and simply reduce or eliminates, deletes that section that is highlighted in red that stipulates that it must be at least an acre of land and that these 100-foot setback from single-family districts. Also adding the 2 conditional uses for the multifamily zones. The rest of the matrix stays the same, so they would be allowed with the granting of a conditional use in the neighborhood commercial, community commercial, service commercial, central business district, and in a PUD should that planned unit development specify this use. So with that brief introduction and overall justification for this change in our zoning regulations, we would ask that you move to approve the ordinance on first reading this evening and set the public hearing for August 20th. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Sally. Bob?
Thank you for taking the initiative and changing what does appear to be an antiquated rule or code. My mom, when I needed to put her in a nursing home, of course there was nothing here in Teller County, so she's down in the Springs, and I looked at about 30 different places to see what would be the nicest for her. About half of them were single-family homes, so you couldn't even go to that point. So is this seen as a kind of a step, or is this kind of how did you decide on just limiting to multifamily properties?
Our single-family residential zones are purely for those types of uses, unless you have resident care homes, and those are more legislated through the federal and state legislation. I think our community is not ready to go there. For example, we currently do not allow bed and breakfast in a single-family residential. So this is a good step to at least broaden the opportunity for senior care facilities without compromising single-family zoning.
But if under the current single-family restrictions where you're allowed to have up to 5 unrelated residents, theoretically you could have a caregiver plus 4 other people that are in the senior category. Would that be allowed under our existing codes?
Only if the caregiver is the resident.
Right. So the caregiver would live in the house, yeah.
The caregiver would be the homeowner typically. And then I should mention we did just adopt accessory dwelling units. So there is an opportunity for families to age in place with their own accessory dwelling unit in the single-family district.
Understand this is just on initial posting today. Anybody else? If not, we'll call for a motion.
Move to approve ordinance 1243 on initial posting, amending section 1.18.090J.3 and setting the public hearing for August 20th, 2015.
Thank you. Second. Kendra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Levy.
Yes.
Matthews.
Yes.
Mella.
Yes.
Sawyer.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Suzanne. We will move on to Miss Erin Smith. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, before you is Ordinance 1244, and what Ordinance 1244 does is it presents for you an update to your code section dealing with work in the public rights-of-way. It's anticipated that this will be discussed at length in a work session to be held at 5:30 on Wednesday, August 20th. Thursday, August 20th. Thank you. And so my presentation tonight will be brief. I will tell you that the form of the ordinance is general and anticipates that there will be technical administrative regulations promulgated. Those will be prepared in advance of the work session because they are really the guts of the new regulations. Council will receive those, and again, I think those will form really a good portion of the subject matter of the work session. The other portion of the ordinance that is contemplated is the promulgation of a schedule of fees that will apply to work in the right-of-way, and that schedule of fees will also be presented to you in draft form at the work session and will also constitute a good portion of what will be discussed at the work session. The ordinance itself has a very general purpose section. It goes on to lay out an advance directive or enabling legislation, if you will, to promulgate those administrative regulations and the schedule of fees, and it tells the drafters of those administrative regulations what they should contain. In addition to going over this ordinance and really the details and guts of it in the administrative regulations that will be presented and the schedule of fees that will be presented, your work session will also contain a presentation, just a education for all of us from those who are in the know about how our public rights-of-way operate, what they look like, what facilities are in them today, what facilities are expected to be in them in the future, and the demands and the services provided by city staff to make sure that the public rights-of-way continue to function at the high level that they do. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and then following that, would recommend that you adopt Ordinance 1244 on initial posting and set the public hearing for September 3rd, which will follow the work session. Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, question. Could we get the supporting documentation in advance of the work session?
That is what we intend to do.
All right, good.
Anything else? Okay, if not, we just need a motion to consider Ordinance 1244.
Move to approve ordinance number 1244 on initial posting.
Thank you. Second from Bob.
Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Matthews.
Yes.
Mella.
Yes.
Sawyer.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Carlson.
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
Levy.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, we'll welcome Sally back to consider Ordinance number 1245.
Thank you. This, too, is a legislative item, so I would like to spend a little time talking about the amendments to Title 15. This is our building and construction chapter, and we're pleased that we have our regional building department partners here this evening who can technically answer any questions that you may have. But in way of background, we partnered with Regional Building Department at the end of 2013, at which time we adopted the Regional Building Codes addition, 2011 code, and in July this past year, they informed me that they were making a few tweaks to their building code, as well as adopting newer versions of the electric code, the plumbing code, and the code related to elevators and escalators. Those three codes, plumbing, electrical, and elevators, are actually managed by the state. So when the state adopts a current version, then the local jurisdictions typically follow behind that and also adopt those versions. Those contractors are licensed through the state, but that allows for the local governments to stay current with the state electrical, plumbing, and elevators. The amendments that are being proposed are actually a little less restrictive, not more restrictive. For example, permits are not required for, right now, a permit is required if you build a fence that is greater than 6 feet tall, so they're raising that to 7. Another is that right now, permits are required for all decks. Now, if you're just putting in a small deck that is no more than 30 inches tall, and it's not part of the egress door, then that is not required to have a permit. Another one is repair to roofs. If it's less than 100 square feet, then that does not require a roofing permit. So Regional Building Department is very conscientious about evaluating the health, safety, and welfare of our construction in our communities. And as they have more and more experience, they are looking at ways to try to streamline and help eliminate some of the extra permitting if it's not necessary. Those are a few examples. This ordinance makes amendments to our Title 15 along those lines, and I'm happy to answer any questions, as well as John and Jay.
Think so. Bob?
We have a number of homeowners in my neighborhood that are expanding their decks or their front porches and things like that. Can I advise them that they need to come to you and say, is this needed permit within the new regime?
Absolutely. We encourage everyone to check with our office. Many people don't realize that even though in the residential district they don't need a building permit, for example, for a shed that is less than 120 square feet or less, this will change it to 200 square feet, but they do still need a zoning development permit, because by our zoning code, we have to check to make sure that they are meeting the setbacks, they're not building the shed in an easement, and that it's in the proper location on the site. So please do, this goes for everybody, to check with our office if they're doing any modifications to their properties, and we can advise them as to whether they need a zoning development permit or a building permit or both.
Thanks, Bob. John?
Do any of these changes impact city revenues?
No, they should not change the city revenues. The plumbing, electrical, and elevator code, that's just updating those codes. The fees all stay the same or current. It may, if someone is building a shed now that's 130 square feet that did need a permit, the shed it's a pretty minor building permit fee that we would not see if they are less than 200 square feet.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Thanks, Sally.
Thank you. I would mention that our Board of Review, Woodland Park Board of Review, did have a work session and did have a thorough discussion about these amendments and recommended approval of the changes as well. And so our request this evening is to move to approve this ordinance on first reading and set the public hearing for September 3rd. Is that the first? And the reason we have to go out 2 meetings is because this is adopted by reference. These codes are referred to, and we are required to do 2 publications if we're adopting regulations by reference.
Great, thank you. Questions? Just have a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 1245 on initial posting, amending Title 15 of the municipal code of Woodland Park.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Mello?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Beth, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to 8D and Lord Pellegrino. Consider ordinance number 1246 on initial posting.
Thank you, Mayor Levy, council members. This is an item that is here for initial approval. It's to consider ordinance number 1246 on initial posting, to consider a request for a conditional use permit by Douglas Potter and Candace Quist Potter in the Central Business District Zone to allow for a change of use from commercial to residential, to allow for 1 single-family residence on lots 9 and 10, Block 30, Stuffa subdivision, filing number 2, addressed at 620 West Midland Avenue. And the request is also to set the public hearing for August 20th, 2015. This is a quasi-judicial case, and my responses to questions will be limited because of that fact. But I am available for questions if there are any.
Okay, if there are none, then we'll call for motion.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Suzanne?
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harvey?
Yes.
Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Mello?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, number 80, and we welcome Aaron back.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, Ordinance 1247 is before you on initial posting. It proposes to amend the cable television franchise agreement between the City of Woodland Park and TDS Baja Broadband LLC to extend the term of the existing franchise for 1 year, during which the renewal of that franchise will be negotiated. That franchise was first approved by council back in 2000. It was for a period of 10 years with a 5-year extension, conditioned upon actions by the cable company to bring technical advancement, and the cable company did comply with that condition, and therefore the cable franchise was extended through August 20th of 2015. It will expire on August 20th, 2015, unless it is extended by this ordinance. And it would be recommended then that you approve this ordinance on initial posting and set the public hearing for August 20th. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Questions, Council Bob?
Yeah, each time this franchise changes owners, does council have to weigh in and transfer that to the new owner?
It is required. The cable company is required to give notice of that. There is a pro forma action by council if council wishes to do that. It has done it on occasion. There are occasions where it did not do that.
Okay, because it appears that they are now a new company again.
There was yet another transfer.
Anybody else?
Well, it says the renewal's up on the 20th of August, and we're setting the public hearing for the 20th of August. Will that have any impact?
It will not. They have already signed the agreement and tendered it to us, and so the intention is on part of both parties to extend if council moves forward and takes care of that action on the 20th. The mayor can sign it that night, and then we would be move forward with that extension.
Thank you. John?
Would we anticipate signing another longer-term contract in September of next year?
We would, and it would actually be expected that we would probably bring that to you sometime prior to September of 2016, but we're giving ourselves that period of time to renew and negotiate that renewal. And so, yes, you would see a new form of a franchise agreement. Having said that, those terms don't, in my experience, those terms don't vary that much necessarily, but there will be opportunities, and we can provide for council or the community opportunities to weigh in on any concerns that they have had with regard to service.
Is there typically at the end of one of these long-term franchise agreements a consideration of the others that might want to enter the market?
Well, these are never exclusive. They're non-exclusive, and the city currently has. And there is an additional franchise right now. It's Porchlight. That the council approved that many years ago, at least maybe 10 years ago. And I believe it is just operating in just a small portion of the city at this time, Stonegate. So cable franchise typically are non-exclusive.
Okay. So if Comcast wanted to enter this market, there's nothing to stop them.
That's correct.
As an example.
John?
Are there performance metrics in these kinds of franchise agreements?
There are, and they're sort of set by the industry and set by those agreements that are have been negotiated by other cities. So you tend not to get too far from that set of standards and protocols.
Are there performance penalties?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Are there performance penalties in these agreements?
There are some.
Are they significant?
I'd have to look back at this agreement and report that to you at a later time.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll call for a motion, please, to consider ordinance number 1247.
I'd move approval of ordinance 1247 on initial posting, amending cable television franchise agreement as presented, and moving the public hearing for August 20th, 2015.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Suzanne?
Schaefer?
Yes.
Carlson?
Yes.
Harvey? Yes. Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Mello?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to public hearings, and before we do that, we'll read the following announcement. Council members use electronic devices to access the materials relevant to the public hearing before us. Be assured that it is the common practice of this city council that these devices are not being used for texting, emailing, or other communications during public hearings. And we welcome back Laura and approving ordinance number 1242.
Thank you, Mayor Levy. This is the item for the Erickson vacation for the easement. It's number 15-004. It is a request by Brett and Coral Erickson, who are the property owners, to vacate the 10-foot utility and drainage easement between lots 5 and 6 of Paradise Estates filing number 8 in the suburban residential zone district, with addresses of 950 and 930 Heather Court. This ordinance did go to City Council for first reading on July 16th, 2015. A general location of these two properties is right there, 950 Heather Court, and you can see that it's in the southeast quadrant of the city. Of course, you can pick out Highway 24 and Highway 67, and the little red bubble in the lower right is the site. Here is a closer in view, an aerial of the site that shows again where it is located relative to its neighborhood. Highway 24 on the left of the photo, and you can see Paradise Circle coming up and Majestic Parkway taking you to Heather Court and to the site itself. And you can see that it's residential surrounding this particular site. This is the zoning map. Again, it shows that it is the suburban residential SR zone all around these lots and in this whole subdivision. As you get closer to the highway, of course, you'll see some of the other medium density, higher density zone districts and the commercial zones. But this site itself, the two lots and all the lots around it are single-family residential. This is a photo taken from Heather Court, from the cul-de-sac looking towards the house that exists. Lot 5 is on the right, which contains the house, the residence that's currently occupied, and Lot 6 is the vacant lot, which is on the left side of this picture. This is a map, a plat, an exhibit, actually, showing the two lots. Lot 5 is on the right, Lot 6 is on the left, and you can see that the interior lot line is proposed to be vacated, and the easement is what is before council today, and that will be vacated between the front and the rear setbacks. So that is the application, the item that we are considering tonight. Staff does have no concerns with this application. We did review it for adverse effects on utilities, access, road construction, area traffic patterns, or adjacent landowners issues. The consolidation is one lot will result in one, excuse me, in one contiguous lot that does conform to the comprehensive plan, and it complies with the suburban residential zone districts. The deeds are in the same tenancy, and it's unnecessary to deal with any water and sewer as the vacant lot has not accessed any water and sewer at this time. We did send this application out on referral to various agencies. Woodland Park Utilities had a chance to look at it. Public Works, our field inspector, the Northeast Teller County Fire Protection District had a look at it. IREA, who had no comment, no concerns. Black Hills, Baja Cable, and CenturyLink all had a chance to review the application and express no concerns with this particular easement vacation. Adjacent property owners were notified of tonight's public hearing. We did post the property, and we did publish tonight's hearing in the Pikes Peak Courier, and we have received no written concerns from any members of the public at this time. Staff does recommend that council approve ordinance number 1242 vacating the 10-foot utility and drainage easement, which is 5 feet on each side between lots 5 and 6 of Paradise Estates, filing number 8, with an address of 950 and 930 Heather Court in the suburban residential zone district, as requested by Brett and Coral Erickson, who are the property owners. Brett and Coral Erickson, unfortunately, are not here tonight. We do have a Mr. Troy Icefield, who is here representing them. If there are any questions of the applicant, he would be more than happy to come up and answer them. Are there any questions of staff?
Questions? Anybody here? Public hearing, anybody in the audience have any questions? None. Laura, great job.
Good stuff.
Thank you very much. And we will call for a motion to approve ordinance number 1242.
Motion to approve ordinance 1242 for Brett and Carol Erickson, property owners, to vacate a 10-foot utility and drainage easement between slot 5 and 6, Paradise Estates, filing number 8, 950 and 930 Heather Court, in the suburban residential zone.
Second.
Thank you. Suzanne?
Carlson?
Yes.
Harvey? Yes. Levy?
Yes.
Matthews?
Yes.
Mello?
Yes.
Sawyer?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, Suzanne. We will move on to new business, which we have none of this evening, so we'll move on to Item number 11, public comment on items not on the agenda, and Mr. Paul Ottman. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you. You can see I'm Army of One again. I don't mind. Well, I guess I want to follow up with David from our previous conversation, and I believe it was recommended that you were going to check to see what other municipalities do. David?
And we have followed council's direction, and our city attorney is doing some due diligence. She has some products that she's received from other entities, so we're moving forward.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then very, very respectfully, I urge every city council person to read the codes where it does say dogs and other animal regulations. So this omittance of cats befuddles me. It's beyond. And even in intent, it goes down to the bottom. And as the one council lady, is it Carol? You mentioned safety. This might be trivial, but it's important. The other day, my granddaughter come flying around the corner telling me, Grandpa, there's a mouse with no head. Now, to an 8-year-old, she freaked out. And that's disease to me. That is unacceptable. So in the intent, it does talk about protecting my property. And it goes down to specify that it's not a city ordinance, it's a state law. So by adopting these regulations, you are obligated, in my opinion, to protect us. I mean, I sincerely feel that. So I appreciate, excuse me, I have allergies and I had to go fishing today, so I caught up. But I do appreciate what you're doing, your effort. I've received many very, very positive comments through the media site that I have joined here in Woodland. But once again, you know, everybody talks, but nobody shows. So, you know, but I'm not going to get discouraged. I will pursue it still. I think it's important for the city of Woodland Park and the citizens. I really, really, really do. Okay? Well, any comments to me? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've thought about the practicality of this. Cats are not like dogs. They don't walk on with leashes. In fact, they don't even keep a collar on for more than 5 minutes. So we were talking before about requiring them to be vaccinated and having a little tag saying that. But if they're not going to have collars on because they take them off,
right?
How do you enforce this? I mean, so there's a lot more in this. And of course, you just keep your cat in the house all the time.
Well, and I have received comments from responsible pet owners that have mentioned that their cats have had this proper shots, and as your councilwoman next to you mentioned previously, that she thought it was also a good idea that they be licensed. And as far as them straying, well, they can be trained. I've received some really good comments that they can be trained, and some people have indoor cats, and some have outdoor, and they're let out periodically under supervision. That's a key right there, is under supervision. Not just wantonly open the door, whether it's a dog, a goat, it doesn't matter. Nobody would want a dog at large. Nobody wants a cat out doing this, or any other pet. So it can be controlled.
Yeah, and that's what we do in our house. We keep our cats indoors, or they go out on the porch with us, but as they leave, we bring them back.
We've had 2 cats. My daughters had them, and they were indoor cats. And periodically, we'd be out in the yard, the cat would come out with us. It stayed in the yard. It can be done.
Okay. Council, we understand your direction. We will continue to work the issue.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Well, thank you again for your time, and good luck with the baseball team. I'll be watching.
Thank you.
Let's hope they play better than. Okay, thank you, folks.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have no one else on the public comment sheet. Does anybody else here have a comment? Young man walking in, I wonder if he has any comments? Okay. Deb, welcome. You haven't been there.
I know, it's been a while, and I apologize for not signing up. I just quickly wanted to let council know there's a big week in our community next week. Charis Bible College is holding their healing conference. They expect 1,700 plus coming to the conference. 60% of those have signed up for their food service, but do the math, that means 40% haven't. We've been out contacting all of the restaurants, letting them know to be prepared. So from noon to 1:30 and 5 to 7, locals, we're just saying there's going to be extra people out there. So we're thrilled to have them here. There's not a room to be had in the region. That's it.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for the heads up, especially for the likes of me. Okay. We'll move on to reports, and I've got a few announcements for everybody. Friday, August 7th and August 14th, Farmers Market. You know the new site behind Vector Bank in the Catholic Church from 7 to 1. And it's supposed to be another beautiful morning tomorrow, so we will see you all there. Saturday, August 8th is the Mayor's Cup. The kids' race starts at 8 o'clock by the pavilion, and the adult run follows. From what I understand, there's some pool if I'm going to run the 50-yard dash or the 10K. You don't have to guess what I'm going to be doing. Saturday, August 8th, Woodland Music Series presents Jazz Big Band at the Pavilion, and that starts at 11 o'clock. That's a free event. Wednesday, August 12th, Touch a Truck at Meadowwood Sports Complex, 10 to noon. That's free. Tell me about that, David.
It's a combined event from our Park and Rec Department and the Resource Exchange. We get multiple big vehicles in from the city, the county, the state, road graders, ambulances, fire trucks, street sweepers, police cars. It's a cacophony of very loud noises. It's a big word, I know. Phil, can you handle it? But it's just great. I mean, my grandkids have gone for a whole lot of years, and they climb around the buckets, they honk the horns, and it's a wonderful event, and there's lots of gimmies. Some of our police cruisers will be there, some of our public works vehicles will be there. It's just a great event for families and young kids.
Bill, who will have the largest tires there?
Oh, us, of course.
You. Good. All right, thanks, David. Tuesday, August 18th is the Arbor Day celebration. And tree plantings at Red Mountain Park across from the fire department. That's from 3 to 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Tuesday, August 18th, Chamber Business After Hours at Caldwell Banker from 5:30 to 7, always well attended. And Thursday, August 20th through Sunday, August 23rd, the Rock Gem and Jewelry Store at the Saddle Club grounds, and it's a free event from 9 to 5 daily. And that's always a great event. Okay, that's all I have. Council? Mayor Pro Tem Harvey?
Yes, sir. The Historic Preservation Committee met on Monday, and there are a lot of things that have happened over the summer that have enhanced our standing as a community that does honor our past and does attempt to preserve our history. We are now a Main Street candidate city. For us to reach the next level of our status as a Main Street city, one of the things that will enhance our ability to do that is to be designated as a certified local government city, or a CLG. So the planning department is going to bring an application forward in the next month or so for your signature and for our endorsement for us to apply for that status. That is not a requirement for the graduate level of Main Street City, but it is something that will be very helpful. Costs us nothing except for a little more of Sally's time and a little more effort on the part of the committee. But in being designated as a CLG, that'll give us an opportunity to apply for no-match grants, get local landmarks considered for state historic income tax credit. There's several benefits to having that designation. Just want to plant the seed tonight. It's coming soon. Anything else on that, Sally? Okay, so look for that in the future.
Great, thank you very much. Bob?
Yeah, the Woodland Aquatic Project Board of Directors had a meeting last night, and I'll defer to David on that since he was there, and I think he's prepared to say something about what we discussed in the meeting last night.
And I'm happy to do that now, or I'll wait to my report.
Okay, sounds good. Ken?
I really don't have anything unless Renee wants to say anything on behalf of Keep Woodland Park Beautiful. I guess not, so I do not.
Mr. Mello?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Cacophony of items done? No?
Same deal, keep on flying, gone for the man, Longview.
I knew I shouldn't have asked. No, I have nothing, Mr. Mayor. John?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I always hesitate to correct you, but I believe the music starts at 9:30 on this Saturday.
Well, then I had that wrong because I provided the mayor that information, and I got that off the chamber's website, so...
Well, I talked with one of the principals, Ralph Rothstein, who said he and his group would be playing at 9:30. Okay? All right. Well, there may be some kind of music.
Cacophony of music.
That's right.
Yeah, since they're practicing.
Then I'm happy to announce that America West Housing Solutions, the nonprofit established here in Woodland Park, Teller County, received approval from Colorado Housing and Finance Authority to build a 24-unit apartment project on the northeast corner of Highway 67 and Valley View Drive. And so we're satisfying a lot of paperwork requirements we have now, and we would hope to start construction most likely in the spring of next year.
Great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Congratulations, John and Brian and everyone that's part of that process. Great job. Are you surprised it came this quickly? We got that approved fairly quick, did we not?
Well, this was actually the third try on this piece of property. We just stressed that we had a better configuration, fewer units, and we had a crack management team. So no, I wasn't surprised.
Good. Well, congratulations. Thanks on behalf of all of us. Okay, we will move on to City Attorney's report. Here.
Mayor and Council, I would like to introduce my Associate Attorney, Kristen Sizowski, who is here with me this evening. I have the opportunity to introduce Kristen to most of Council and the members of City staff. I'm pleased to have Kristen join our firm as an Associate Attorney. She's been with us now 3 months. She comes to us from Vermont Law School after having a undergraduate degree in civil engineering and also a master's in urban planning and administration. So she comes very well suited to work in our firm, which does municipal land use and special district and planning work. Thank you.
Welcome, Kristen. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Okay. That's all you have.
It is.
Okay. Mr. Buttery?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Carlson's correct. I did attend the Woodland Aquatic Project meeting last night. But what I'd like to do is give you an update on the Aquatic Center. But in order to do that, I need to give you an update on our other capital projects and just a little bit of history. Several years ago, this then-sitting council determined that the top 3 priorities in the city would be renovation of the fleet maintenance facility, renovation of Memorial Park, and also an aquatic center. So as we matured and our finances became more stable, I came to you with several recommendations on how we could achieve those 3 projects. You know very well that we were going to pursue certificates of participation for fleet maintenance and for the park project and bonding for the aquatic center. We were successful in receiving an over $870,000 grant from Department of Local Affairs for the fleet maintenance facility, and it was determined that probably the best and wisest use of our city tax dollars was to pay cash for the fleet maintenance facility. It's under construction now. Block is going up. I think I mentioned before that we had some asbestos issues that were discovered as construction began behind some walls. Bill's done a very good job in causing that process to be mitigated. Yes, it did add a little bit of cost to the project, but it was well within the contingency fund that we set aside. So from a finance perspective, the fleet maintenance facility is on track and it's doing just fine. Memorial Park has been funded with the certificates of participation. The project is fully funded with the exception of the splash pad. The splash pad was about a $300,000 item in the park that as we looked at the park and what things made the most sense to continue moving forward with, the splash pad came out so that we could then afford the entire project utilizing some grant money, about $390,000, both from GOCO, Great Outdoors Colorado, and Fishing is Fun. The residual comes from the 410 fund, a little bit from 510, a little bit from 520, and the rest through the COPs that will be paid for by the general fund. That project is under construction. You can see the demolition work that's been accomplished, and fairly soon we'll be moving into the actual renovation work. At this point, that project is moving along very smoothly. We haven't been handed any change orders. We don't think there's going to be too many issues that will come up. We never know, though. When you get into construction, there's always a chance for surprises, but we have built into that budget a healthy contingency as well. So that brings us to the Aquatic Center. When we went to the citizens to have the bond question, we had a general idea of what the scope of the project would be. And we asked the citizens to support a $10.1 million bond that would allow us to build that facility. We selected that bond amount based on our ability to service that debt. It was less about the size of the structure and more about the ability to service the debt, not only for the facility but also for the infrastructure needs that are around that area. So the roads, the curb, gutter, sidewalk, drainage, water, wastewater, stormwater, and stormwater being a big one. So the bond was to cover and support the vast majority of the costs associated with that. We knew that there would be some costs that would exceed that $10.1 million. After the bond election, the Woodland Aquatic Project had another public meeting, and there were other issues that came up from the community where they said they would like some other things within the pool, within the aquatic center. We analyzed that, and it was my determination that that was something that we could afford. So we moved forward with a design that included about 3 other amenities that were some fairly expensive space. And as we moved forward through concept design and then design development, and as we entered into, concept design and schematic design, before we get into the full-blown, what's the size of the bolt holding the steel together, we've done another estimate, and the estimate far exceeds what anyone expected it to be. It does, however, include those amenities that the citizens have asked us to include. I've been working very closely with our architect, the general contractor, the Woodland Aquatic Project to reconcile the difference. I believe we have a plan to move forward that will allow us to complete the project as our citizens have wanted us to do. The other component of this is that all communities and all sectors are coming out of the recession. There's quite a bit of building going on. If you are down in Colorado Springs or Denver, all over, there's lots of municipal building, there's lots of private building. There's a limited labor pool, and the costs for labor have gone up, and therefore the cost of construction have gone up. We have some preliminary estimates from our general contractor. 80% of the work is bid out, so it's still going to go through a competitive process, and I daily am able to narrow that gap down. Woodland Aquatic Project is actively pursuing grants and foundation money. The mayor and I have met with many people who have shown great interest. This is all-consuming with this issue for me. It's my alligator right now. But I'm going to be able to tame this alligator because I've got lots of help, and I've got about 1.5 years to do that. I've got the rest of 2015, 2016, and the early parts of 2017 to make up that difference. It's not insurmountable. It's big, but it's not insurmountable. My goal is to provide the citizens what they desire. I'm not prepared to reveal to you what that number is yet because I don't have that final estimate, but it's more than what our increase in sales tax will cover. It's more than that, but we're looking at other ways to reduce the costs, other ways to make sure that, again, we're responsible with taxpayer dollars and we build the project that the community has long desired. I'm happy to answer any questions.
My first comment would be, when we presented the concept of a bond in the amount of $10.1 million, we also presented a concept of the pool and what amenities it would have. why would one group, the aquatic board, change that concept? We sold something to the public. Why are we changing that to accommodate one small group?
Well, that's a very reasonable question, but I don't think it's one small group. The meeting that was held was a public meeting. We had quite a few citizens. I would say probably about 100 that participated in 2 of the different meetings. The additions are really very reasonable things to the pool. One was an aquatherapy pool that we've heard from hospitals, physical therapists, and those types of folks, and actually people who operate pools, that can be a moneymaker over the long term. My issue right now is the upfront cash to make that happen. We have some benefactor who it looks like will cover a third of that cost. So we're able to compensate for some of that increase. But it's a real amenity that I think is worthwhile having in the facility. The other one was 2 warm water lap lanes to be part of the leisure pool. You recall there's the competitive pool, which is cooler water, and the leisure pool was intended to have warmer water, and by having 2 warm water lap lanes, it accomplishes many things. It gives a place for kids to learn to swim, not in cold water that's intended for those who are exercising. It gives a place for seniors to do aqua aerobics in a warmer space. It also gives a place when there is competitive swimming going on, it gives a place for the swimmers to warm up and cool down.
And I don't deny any of those are going to be wonderful amenities that may in the long run pay for themselves. But can't they be accomplished as plug and play at later dates? Why do we have to spend every dime we have now for something that may not pay for itself for several years out?
I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. The lap lanes, the warm water lap lanes aren't plug and play. The therapy pool could be. In fact, at one point last week I had removed it. I'd removed the space, I'd removed the pool and all of that. As I worked the numbers and I was able to close the gap quite a bit, just with some adjustments and fine-tuning and updating all of our sales tax revenue and those things, I felt I could add it back in. With the knowledge that we always have the ability at the last minute to cut it out. But right now I need to move forward with the design so that we get the full actual prices. The concept design is done as an estimate by architects. In design development, and at the end of that, schematic design, that's done by the general contractor. General contractors, remember, have to give us a guaranteed maximum price. So their numbers are going to be high to protect themselves. Once they go into the bidding process and we have firm A bidding against firm B, there's going to be competition, and I expect those numbers to drop. Historically, that's what's occurred. So I understand the angst, and I've been working through that myself a lot. But I firmly believe that this is a component. The ones that we've put back in make sense. They make sense to give the community the pool that they want.
And Carol, I'll help too. There are some things you can plug and play. For instance, the water slot. And that's a $400,000
Yeah, and that's been removed.
But we will have the opening in the wall at the top and the bottom where you can then put this.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what that will look like.
Yeah, I mean,
there's the ability to put it in.
It can be removed simply, or something like that. But the intent was to plug it later on. Or if we, certainly the board, along with the help of Mayor Levy and City Manager Buttery, are actively seeking to close the gap through private contributions from foundations, big businesses, and then individuals. And I don't know if Neil wants to say anything on that subject, but we're pretty confident we're going to be able to cover a lot of any gap that there might be.
The city's operations will not be harmed. As I've gone through my budgeting process, I've maintained our expenditures for our police department, for our snow plowing. All those things have been maintained status quo from what I showed you a year ago. I'm not reducing the workforce. I'm not changing the fuel budget. I'm not changing salt sand. None of those things are being touched because it's very important that we maintain the operational readiness of the community.
questions, Phil. So the extra money would be in addition to the 10.1 and would be paid for out of current year cash when the obligation becomes due?
Yes, but current year doesn't mean 2015.
No, I know, right.
But I need that to be really clear for the listening audience. That current year is also 2016
Correct.
and 2017.
But it's outside the 10.1 that was voted on?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, not totally. There's the bond is covering design of both the infrastructure and the facility, and it's also covering part of the infrastructure in the facility. So the bond has its fingers in all four components: two design components, two construction components. So the gap is actually has nothing to do with the infrastructure. That's pretty well covered. Is the design. So I think now, as I've talked myself through this, the delta that's needed is needed for the center itself, not for the infrastructure or for the design.
When you say that, for the center itself, is
Yes.
it for the original plan that was presented to the public prior to the November election, or is this a modified one that now adds more amenities that was not presented to the public?
Yeah, it's added more amenities than what was shown to the public. Now, what was shown to the public was a facility of about 21,000 square feet, or a little less than that, and it's now about 24,500 with those amenities that I mentioned. There's also, it's basically those amenities that I mentioned to you. But the bond language was intentionally general, but it is different than what was shown to the public. No argument there.
And the concern I have, just apropos of what Mayor Pro Tem Harvey said, is that we're looking at not just additional funds, but it's how the process unfolded could be questioned insofar as she indicated initially that it was a small group. You said it's not a small group, there were 100 people. But typically those things are attended by people who have a disproportionate interest. And so you do have kind of a skewed metric in terms of the level of interest relative to the amount of expenditure. And it is outside the electoral process in terms of people voting for it.
But I'm not increasing the bond amount.
Right.
I'm not going back to the citizens for a tax increase.
Yeah.
We're going to close the gap. If I went back into the bond market today, based on our increased sales tax revenue, we could bond for probably $1 million, $1.5 million more than what we bonded for, just with our ability to service the debt. But you have to take a picture when you go into the bond market of where you are now. The unfortunate thing is that it's a year and a half, a 2-year gap between when you do that and when the reality hits you of what a project's going to cost.
And I can accept that, and I know it's much more complicated than my household budget, but I know when I budgeted for a new home, I had a set amount of money that I could spend, and I chose those things and amenities that I wanted to have in that home based on how much I had to spend, not on how much I might be able to get later from somebody who'd give me a grant to put a hot tub in my backyard. Maybe I'm looking at this superficially, but I don't want to endanger the general fund to accommodate an amenity that we never sold to the public to begin with.
That's point well taken, I'm sure. John?
Yeah. Well, I've had many friends and acquaintances tell me how excited they are to finally have a pool here. I'm continually asked the question, when will it be done? And assuming that all these issues regarding funding and design, would you feel comfortable giving me a start and complete date on the Aquatic Center?
We're looking at one of the cost-saving measures is not to begin construction this fall, because then we bring on a general contractor and we pay general conditions, for about a 5-month period through the course of the winter when very little work could be going on. If we put any shovels in the ground this fall, it would be for the rerouting of Fountain Creek, which is absolutely a component that's associated with the Aquatic Center, but it's not the aquatic center, but it's a step that has to happen before we can build the aquatic center. My expectation is that we would break ground on the aquatic center in April or May of 2016, and that we would cut the ribbon about a year later.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? What else do you have tonight, David?
I think that's enough, Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on. Excuse me. I have no comment on written correspondence. Unless we have anything else, this meeting is adjourned.